You've been making headlines, everyone's covering it, where you're warning people, hey, folks, brace for a major market crash here.
Right.
What do you bring us this Christmas, Robert?
Well, the reason I love you guys is because I'm a hardcore gold, silver, and I'm Bitcoin and all this. I'm a hard asset guy. So it's good news for us, but it's bad news for the boomers. Very bad news. And what's happening is Jay Powell of the Fed is trying to push the yield curve up. But as most of you know, the real yield curve is the euro dollar curve. It's not the Fed curve. And the euro dollar curve went inverted. Now, every time that has happened, tragedy follows. So most of us are old enough to remember the last time that yield curve, not the last time, but an earlier time was 2007. The euro-dollar yield curve inverted, and the Fed was trying to hold it up. So the Fed's pushing it this way, but the euro-dollar is going this way. And that led to the Lehman moment, 2008. So then what happened in 2019, it inverted again, the repo market inverted, the euro-dollar inverted, and COVID appeared. So once again, the euro-dollar yield curve inverted just recently, and I'm standing alongside my friend Jim Rickards that this next one is going to be the biggest of all. Now, it's good news for some people, but horrible news for the boomers who are starting to retire. So if you're a stock market person and you're counting on the stock market to keep you alive,
yeah.
Let's say you're 65 years old and you're going to live to 85, you might be in serious trouble.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Robert Kiyosaki, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, don't be defined by a C score.
When you were in school, were you an A student or a C student? Were you the star of the class or the flunky of the class? And if you weren't the A student, then did that mean you couldn't be successful? Is that what it means to you? If you didn't go to a great school, you're never going to be successful? What if you drop out? What if you drop out like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates? That means you've had it. Jack Ma, who was the founder of a little company called Alibaba, he just recently said, if you're 35 and you're not rich and successful, you'll never be successful. Of course, Jack Ma is a school teacher, former school teacher who struck it rich. But naturally, they have this idea that if you're not successful in school, you'll never be successful in life. And my contention has always been it almost damages you in school. School damaged my brain, and my father was the head of education for the state of Hawaii, PhD. And I hated school. I sat there and getting pounded all the time for being stupid.
Rule number 3, own gold and silver.
This is gold. This is real security. It's God's money. So is silver, and so is Bitcoin due to the blockchain technology. I'm not saying buy any of this stuff. I'm just telling you why I own this. So this is real money. I can travel anywhere in the world. Its value goes up and down as it's manipulated, and I can spend it. But what this is, the Zimbabwe dollar, is fake money. And the only way this comes into existence is an entrepreneur like me creates an asset. Rich Dad Poor Dad is about assets versus liabilities. So I go into BlackRock and I say, guess what? I have a startup here. Tesla or something. And Tesla is now $1 trillion company. But what happens if GM, and Biden doesn't like Tesla, I can tell, but he doesn't recommend them. I'm not in the game. I'm not in that dogfight. But let's say that GM comes out with an electric car that you can buy for $2. Tesla's toast. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so much of the stock market is based upon the valuation of a company like Tesla, or like the earlier thing, Netflix or Blockbuster Video. so much of it is you don't know what's called the counterparty to it. The only counterparty to this is God. God made this. And silver, God made this. And the Bitcoin is blockchain. That's what gives Ethereum and blockchain. So some people ask me, I'm Satoshi, so I don't speak Japanese. But I don't know anything about blockchain, but I just don't trust this. I don't trust the US dollar. I don't trust the Fed. I don't trust the Treasury. And I don't trust our government. And I don't trust Wall Street. If you do, invest your ass off. But what they're doing is they're creating what I call a fake asset.
Yeah.
So let's say I go to you and say, Sarah, I'm starting this company. And I've been there. They hyped the company. Yeah. And so really the issue is trust today. This thing here is in God we trust. There's no counterparty risk to it. But there's a lot of counterparty risk to this. And there's a lot of counterparty risk to BlackRock, to the stock market and all this.
Rule number 4, become financially literate.
This is called a financial statement. What makes the cash flow game different from Monopoly, which how my rich dad taught me via Monopoly, is my rich dad also taught me about financial statements. So the cash flow is the only game with a financial statement. So really simply, when you look at a financial statement, there's income, expense, assets, liabilities. There's one more thing in the cash flow game on the financial statement you'll see. It's the most important statement of all. It's called the statement of cash flow. It's off to the side here. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur or a capitalist, you have to have one of these. You're going to be rich, you have to have one of these. But 99% of all high school students leaving school and college have no idea what this is. You have FICO scores, but you don't know what this is.
No.
So when a banker asks you for your financial statement, they want to see how smart you are here. So let me tell you why school makes students poor. So really simply, it's this. Let's say I have a master's in arts, Master of Arts degree, right?
Yeah.
Or a Bachelor of Arts degree.
Yeah.
Do I learn anything about income?
No.
What about Greek mythology?
Oh, there you go. That's very important.
I learned nothing about income. And we wonder why kids are leaving school, or young generation, looking for that high-paying job. But now let me ask you this. If you have a degree in technology, mm-hmm. Do you learn anything about assets?
Never.
So you could be a techie and you know nothing about this. You could be a techie and know nothing about this. You see, when a banker looks at your financial statement, they're looking at the mirror of you. Mm-hmm. This is a reflection of you. Mm-hmm. And if you got Jack here and Jack here, then you're not that smart financially. Yeah. So the reason the cash flow game is such an important game, it teaches you what is important to your banker or for a capitalist or for an entrepreneur, is that an entrepreneur's got to know how to increase their income.
Yeah.
And an entrepreneur's got to know how to create assets. Mm-hmm. If you don't know those two things, you should not be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. You should be an employee.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, study the real estate game.
Right now, if you're in Minneapolis and they vote to defund the police, you're toast. I mean, your $100,000 house goes to $10,000 because nobody wants to live there. So you understand it's not real estate, it's really the macro around real estate. And I've never met so many idiots in my life. I'm going, holy mackerel. And just remember this, you can buy a stock like Amazon and you make a mistake, you can get out tonight. You buy a piece of real estate like in Minneapolis or wherever they're going to defund the police, you can't get out. Yeah. You're going to ride that Titanic down. Kim and I had to sell a piece of property in Portland, Oregon. Beautiful property, all the bells and whistles on the water, boat docks, all this crap. Yeah. But the trouble is that tenants couldn't get in there because the number of homeless camped out in front of it were thick. The tenants couldn't get to the property, and the police wouldn't do anything.
Rule number 6, master the cash flow quadrant.
Real quickly, this is the cash flow quadrant, You have E stands for employee, S stands for self-employed or small business, or a specialist like a doctor or a lawyer. B stands for big business, 500 employees or more. And I stands for insider investor. See, these guys are passive investors, they're outsiders. These guys invest from the inside. So the I's are like Shark Tank guys, like Mark Cuban and all that. They're entrepreneurs who now acquire other companies. So when I was probably in my 20s, or when I was growing up, should I say, my dad wanted me to be an employee. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I could fly. So he wanted me to fly for the airlines as a pilot. So I didn't want to do that. And my mom, she was a nurse, and she wanted me to be a specialist, like a medical doctor. And I said to my mom, I says, one problem. I said, medical doctors are smart. That's what S stands for. She goes, you're right, you'll never be a doctor. So I only had one hope, was to go to the B side and the I side. So today, I own many, many businesses, and I invest from the inside. Now, some people say, well, insider trading, that's illegal. It's not illegal. There are certain parts of insider trading that's illegal, but the biggest deal is always inside. So what my rich dad taught me is, if you're not on the inside, you're on the outside. And the reason most people don't make much money is on the outside. Like just now, Uber and Lyft floated on the stock exchanges. The insiders already made their money. Now the outsiders come in. That's the game. So in my lifetime, I've taken 3 companies public on the Toronto Stock Exchange: a gold company, a silver company, and an oil company. I did it because I wanted to find out what it's like to be on this side, on the B and the I side. And they're completely different worlds, different mindsets, different human beings. So if you want to go to school, this is where people wind up, E and S. And Rich Dad stands for people who want to be on this side here. It's a very different mindset, skill sets, education process.
Rule number 7, learn your lessons.
The reason there's no counterparty risk, this is an element. I forget the number. Silver is an element, and Bitcoin is blockchain. There's no counterparty risk. This is a Zim dollar. It's no difference than a US dollar or a US stock or a US bond. And so that's why you don't find me saving dollars. I save gold, silver, Bitcoin. And it could change. Bitcoin could become obsolete also. But the reason I listen to guys like Anthony Pompliano and all the smart young guys is they'll give me early warning if something's going to come up. So you got to pay attention to what YouTube is saying. If they don't take them down, like they took George Gammon down. But ladies and gentlemen, you've really got to be smarter today. And that's why the Rich Dad Company was founded. We don't sell stocks or bonds or mutual funds or gold. We just sell awareness, be aware of what's happening. If you want to speak macroeconomics, you always ask, who's the counterparty? So in other words, when I borrowed money when I first started out, nobody would lend me money because they don't trust me.
Because who are you?
As the credibility got up, and I lost a lot of money at the start. Kim and I went broke and all this stuff. But each mistake we made, we got smarter. We met smarter team members like our Rich Dad team right now. We've met a lot of crooks, like our first CEO, our second CEO, and our third CEO who we've met. They're all crooks. They cheat, they lie, they steal. I can't believe it. So Kim and I were in horrible shape because the first people were, we love Rich Dad. And they were stealing as much as they could. Holy mackerel. But that's how you meet, the lesson we teach is that every time you meet a bad partner, you meet a good partner. So most of our best partners today came from bad partners. So you got to be very, very careful, because my new book's coming out. It's called The Capitalist Manifesto. But the terminology is this: who is the counterparty to this gold coin? God. And who is the counterparty to this? The government. Who do you trust? Who's the counterparty to Bitcoin? Blockchain. It's people's money. I trust the people more than the government. And that's why I support Bitcoin. Could I be wrong? Possibly, But that's why I listen to YouTube, even though they take me down all the time. But some of these guys, like I said, Michael Saylor and Pompliano and all this, they'll send out the warning if something's wrong.
Rule number 8, use debt to your advantage.
Like I said, and Kenny and I were in Dallas, Texas at the Sovereign Man, and everybody's up there, Kenny stands up there and says, I just borrowed $300 million. The average guy can't get a $30,000 loan, much a $300 million loan. But the power of real estate is debt, and the more debt you have, you don't pay any taxes. But you better know what you're doing, because you don't just buy it for that reason.
Rule number 9, invest in liquid assets.
I was talking to John about the party I went to. These people were talking about real estate. And I just had to tell them, I really cannot endorse what you're doing. You're buying real estate at the top of a market. Yes, but real estate always goes up. I said, maybe. But if it comes down, the trouble with real estate is illiquid. This gold here is as liquid as they come. I can go anywhere in the world and somebody will give me money for it. Anywhere. But real estate, no. S&P 500 is liquid. This is liquid. And so is cash liquid.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is have fun.
I've been accused of being a racist so many times. And then I was accused of being a white supremacist. And I looked in the mirror and said, no, I'm still Asian.
Right. Yeah.
The biggest real estate deals I missed was after, it was in 1996. It was the Thai baht crisis. I was in Thailand sniffing around for deals. I was in Bangkok. And this guy was trying to sell me this office building. It's only $4 million. I forgot how many square feet, So I'm in Bangkok, Thailand, looking at this building. It's $4 million. Then the Thai baht thing, long-term capital management crashed, which is my friend
Jim Rickards,
and all this stuff was happening all over the world. This is 96, I think. And so I looked at that office building. I said, God, I'm glad I didn't buy it, So I come back a few years later and I said, who bought that building? I said, this woman bought it. I said, what's she doing with it? She turned it into a cat house. So she was renting out office space by the night.
There's always an opportunity.
And she was creaming it. So, I said, I've got to take this woman to lunch. And she was only like 35 years old. She says, it's the oldest profession in the world. I'll always be in business. I sat there howling and cracking up and crying almost, because I couldn't see it. And so my whole thing, no matter how bad it is, keep an open mind, study, I've not recommend you open a cat house or anything like that, but I sat there looking at her going, you got it, kid. I mean, she really had it. So she's renting out by the hour, the night, and all the hookers would come in, they'd take little spots, and she had customers for life. I don't know what happened to them during the COVID shutdown.
Right. Social distancing goes out the window at that point.
But anyway, the reason with the Rich Dad radio show and Bigger Pockets and these guys, there's always an opportunity, but you've really got to have an open mind and study. And so I was talking to this one guy, and he says, well, I have a private pilot's license. And then, those guys, it's called the Big Dog. He was like, Big Dog in me. I got a private pilot license. I leaned over and I said, I don't even have a license, but I have air medals. He didn't know what an air medal was. An air medal just meant how many round trips did you take into combat? And came back alive. I said, that's all it means. It doesn't mean I was a hero or anything, because I wasn't. We're just happy to bring my crew back alive. That's all we cared about. But to get to that level of flying is the same as investing. And I think that's what I really learned, is the dedication, not to be the best pilot, but be the best that I could be. And if I'm not the best that I can be, people die.
And a lot of people, it's okay to be average, if you know what I mean. But when you get into that situation, when you're going in and out of combat zones, I went down 3 times, but I wouldn't be back today if I hadn't practiced to be the best. And so when I go into the world of money and investing, I'm still not, I'm not Zuckerberg or those guys, but you still have to be the best you can be. And that's how I can beat, investing in the stock market with diversified stocks, bonds, which are the ETFs. If you're not willing to be the best that you can be, that's the best for you. You're an average person. Nothing wrong with being average. But there's something inside each of us that wants to be the best at something. And when I was reading your background, I think that's what you're pushing people, or asking people, what do you want to be the best at? And I just love the Marine Corps. I hated it when I was in it. I tell you what, they're not polite. But they demanded the best out of it. So today I carry those traits. I went to military school, and then I went to 5 years of Marine Corps and flying and all this. So when I hang out with my friends also want to be the best. And so in some of my books and things, I said, look at the 5 people you spend time with. If they're not striving to be the best, that's who you are too.
A big lesson for you is that it's nothing to do with the house, the car, the student loan. It has to do with where's the cash flowing. If the cash is flowing into your income statement, into your pocket, it's an asset. It's good debt. But if it's taking money from your pocket, it's bad debt. About debt, there's good debt and bad debt. If you're going to be successful, like whether you're an employee or entrepreneur, you've got to control the direction of your cash flow. First property there, it was in Maui, Hawaii in the 1970s. I bought it with a credit card.
Wow.
Property was $18,000, my first, but I've taken several real estate classes. And so I knew what to look for. I found this one property. It took a long time. When I found it, I just broke out my credit card and bought it, and it put $25 in my pocket. I took 3 companies public through Toronto. Through VC, Vancouver Stock Exchange, and I had to migrate to the Toronto Stock Exchange. Why did I do that? To learn how to raise capital on public markets. Now, the average entrepreneur never does that. They keep opening a pizza shop, and they open 2 pizza shops, and that's about it, because they're in it just for the money. I wanted to learn something, so I took my first was an oil company in Portugal, and I took that public, and everybody told me there's no oil in Portugal, and I found out the hard way. They're right. There's no oil there. That company crashed and burned like a airplane coming out of the sky, And then the next thing, I started a silver company in Argentina, and we struck silver, and we did very well.
Yeah.
And then I started a gold company in China, and the Chinese took it. So that was a priceless experience. Aren't you bitter? I go, yeah, but that's what I did it for. You understand that? I did it for that. So the tax department, which every country has taxes, they want to know what kind of income do you work for. So when you say to someone your age or a child to the parent to the child, they say, let's go to school, get a job. They're working for this type of income. Earned income, as you can see from this diagram here, this is earned income here. And the first thing you pay is the highest taxes, because you worked for money.
Yes.
The government doesn't want you working for money. Yeah. They punish you for that. They want you to hire employees or invest. Okay, so earned income is what they work for. The second is portfolio income. It's also called capital gains. So if I buy a house for, let's say, $100,000, I sell it for $200,000, the $100,000 is capital gains. If I buy a stock for $10 and sell it for $20, the $10 is the capital gains. This is the second highest taxed. So the tax breaks that President Trump is working on today is primarily for these guys here. So they're doctors, lawyers, highly educated people, and they have stocks. Most of these guys don't have stocks of the working class. They have a 401k, but they don't get the break. But these guys, if you're active in stocks and that kind of stuff, or flipping houses, you get a break. But what the really rich work for is passive income. And passive income, for me, I have a business. Whether I work or not, money comes in. And you've seen me. I'm not here, am I?
No, never.
Never. I've earned the right not to be here. Real estate, I have every year, my wife and I, Kim, we add more real estate. Also, we have commodity income from oil wells and things like this. Even the stock price of oil doesn't go up and down and all this, we still get this. But this is another type of income. This here, I won't get into, is called phantom income. It's taxes I don't pay, so this is a little bit beyond most people's minds. But let's say my tax bill is $100,000. By doing what the government wants here, the government may give me a $50,000 tax break. That means $50,000 in taxes I don't have to pay.
Wow.
So the $50,000, it didn't go to the government, it went back up here. So that's what financial education does. It teaches you about the financial statement, which is not taught in school. Again, they teach you FICO scores, which is really FIDO scores.
Exactly.
What's your total, little doggy?
Exactly.
Okay. And then for you at your age now, you want to know this. This is what they're teaching you to work for now. Ironically, when you save money and you have a 401k, this is the kind of income. So savings and 401ks are taxed the highest types of income. To me, it's stupid, but if you don't know any better, it's the saving money in, what do you call that, 401ks is good. Okay. In Canada, it's called RRSP. In Australia, it's called the superannuation. But this is what most people have, because they went to school, they got a job. And then this is what the rich really have. It's passive, and it's because I'm an active investor. I don't buy this because this is passive investors. I am active, and I'm professional in all of these areas. So I work for passive income, which means I'm not here. The check comes in, the checks come in every year, and you've seen Kim and I, and your mother now, she's working on here. And so your mother's income keeps going up, your father's income keeps going up, and they don't have a job. That's what I was talking. You want to find your soul. Where is your soul? You know, what will sit up? You know, it's like each time I was going down, I wasn't flying for me. I was flying for my two young gunners, 19-year-old boys, really, with kids already. If I didn't do the best job possible taking that aircraft into the ocean, their kids were fatherless. And when I meet people who don't have it in life, they don't really have that soul in them. The soul is there, don't get me wrong. It's there, but you don't need it yet. So today we're in this, I think we're going into a major depression. I hate to say that, but are you prepared for it? I'm prepared for it. I wrote a book called Rich Dad's Prophecy. And I said the biggest stock market in history was coming in 2016. So the biggest crash in world history came in March 2020. We're going into a depression. Hope not. But I would say there's a 60% chance we're in a depression. Now, for somebody with a soul and a spirit, it's the greatest opportunity in history. The world's changing. I'm going to get out of this thing. So these are the four words: income, expense, asset, liability. And the last two words are the words cash flow. And that's why the game is called cash flow. And the secret to being rich is not a college education, but can you control cash flow? And this is what cash flowing looks like. So this here, I need this, income, expense, asset, liability. Again, this is, you get a job. And this was my poor dad, go to school, get a job, get your PhD. And so this here is cash flow. So the income comes in and it goes out this way. First line of expense is tax. So this is a poor person's cash flow pattern. It's not how much money you make. Most people, I don't care if you have a PhD or no school at all, but they can't control the cash flowing out through their expenses. And so that's why people like Susie Orman say, cut up your credit cards, live below your means, because you're a spendaholic. So that's a poor person. This is a middle class person's cash flow pattern. And this is where the house comes in. First thing, most kids do when they get pay raise or that, they buy themselves a bigger house. Oh, my house is an asset. Now, who tells you that? Your real estate agent, of course.
Yeah.
Right? Because they want to give you this false sense of security while you're getting screwed.
Exactly.
But when you look at what happens with a house, a personal residence, something I live in, the money comes in and goes out, and this is middle class, but it also goes out through a mortgage payments. Oh, but I don't have a mortgage. You still have taxes. You still, Hawaii just raised the property taxes on me, which is probably what I'm going to sell. I'm going to get out of Hawaii. But you have taxes and you have upkeep. So money's always flowing out. So that's why your house is not an asset, is because it's taking money from your pocket. So very simply said, assets put money in my pocket, liabilities take money from my pocket. And then this here is, so I'm not saying don't buy a house, but here is a house. And I started when I was 25, bought my first house, and it was an apartment, it was an investment property. I didn't live in it, I rented it out, and it put money in my pocket. So very simple, the definition of asset and liability is not the house or this, it's cash flow. Where is the cash flowing? So as a young person, and to all millennials, or if you're old, financial intelligence is the ability to control cash flow. This is the difference between rich and poor. The people on this side are always trying to save money. It makes no sense to save money because after 1971, the United States took the dollar off the gold standard and the dollar became debt. So the people who are saving money are the biggest losers of all. The people who are the biggest winners are people who know how to use debt to get rich. See, debt is money. After 1971, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, money became debt. And so the people who are losers are savers. So as Kenny says, you put your money in the bank as a saver, Kenny goes in and borrows it out as a debtor, and we use that money to buy millions of dollars worth of real estate. So Kenny just went over $1 billion worth of real estate using debt. But most people say, well, I can't do that because I don't have any money. You don't have any money because lesson number 1 says the rich don't work for money. So we learn to use debt to create assets. And assets keep putting money in our pocket.
What is your definition of greatness?
Getting up every day. At my age, you got to worry about that stuff. I said my plan was to die at 72. I almost died so many times. I went down 3 times in Vietnam, and my days were numbered from the start. I've had open heart surgery, I've had cancer, I've had pneumonia, I've had malaria. And so, when everybody talks about this COVID-19, I said, been there, done that one, But each one of it inspired me to get healthier. Mm. And so this crisis should inspire people to get wealthier, or you can be a loser. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's just everything bad is good. Mm. And everything good will be bad. You have to have skills. My father, poor dad, was a PhD. He had no entrepreneurial skills. His whole life was based around fear, the fear of failing. He needed job security. He could never make it as an entrepreneur. Never. Not with that spirit.
Can you change your spirit? That's my question.
Yes, of course you can. It's your choice of friends. Every day you're making that choice. So the thing that when I was still in the Marine Corps flying, I came back from Vietnam, went to a station in Hawaii for my last year. At that point, my poor dad, says to me, all your friends are going to fly for the airlines. So Hawaiian Airlines they needed pilots bad, not like today. But most of my friends got to fly for United. And so my poor dad says, why don't you fly for United? I said, something inside me said, that's too easy. I can already fly. I'd already had 1,000 hours of flying in combat. So to go fly a 747 is not that challenging to me. But she said, but you're making $500,000 a year. I said, that's chump change. You see, my expectations of self are a lot more than $500K a year. This is in the 70s and 80s. I said, I want a bigger challenge than that. Now, this is the interesting thing. I just finished my latest book, Who Stole My Pension? My friends who flew for United, their pension was stolen. Mm-hmm. So they're all hosed. But they chose security. They chose security. And what I did, instead of going to work for United, my rich dad, my best friend's father, says, you're not an entrepreneur. I said, why is that? He says, because you can't sell. You're too shy. And he was just giving me a hard evaluation. He said to me, my rich dad says, Robert, how's your sex life? I said, I don't know. I can't get a date. He says, because you can't sell. So he says, you can't handle rejection. You're not going to make it as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs, there's 1,000 rejections to 1. And he says, you better go get rejected pretty quickly. I got a job with Xerox because they had sales training. And then for 2 years, I was the worst salesman they ever had. I was going to get fired from Xerox. And so I went to my rich dad and I said to him, why? What's wrong? He says, how many sales calls do you make a day? I said, on a good day, 3. He says, that's why you're not successful. Same formula. He says, you have to fail more. He says, you got to step up your failure rate. So I found a nonprofit, and at night, after I was working at Xerox, I would go to the phone bank up the street from where I was working in Honolulu. And I had a goal. I had to fail 35 times that night. So I just failed 35 times. Now, interesting thing happened. My numbers at Xerox went up. You see, I was handling that fear. I was handling the wimp in me, the coward. And most people don't want to go through the wimp. And that's why I don't have much time for them.
Do you know why they tell you to save money?
I don't know.
Because the system of banking, it's nothing to do with communism or capitalism. It's the banks run the world. The rich run the world. They don't care if you're communist or capitalist. So when you save, let's say you save $1 US or €1, 1 yen, the banking system can lend out 10. So the entire system is called the fractional reserve system. The fractional reserve system is also printing money. And then they tell you to save money. So they want you to save money so they can lend out your money 10 times. So your dollar became worthless 10 times over. And then they used to pay you 10% interest on your money. Now it's at best 1%. And they're still lending it out 10 times. So that's why you don't save money, is because your money is becoming worth less and less and less and less and less. The banks are getting richer and richer and richer. Then they tax you on that interest they pay you. That 1% interest, if they pay you that much. Japan is 0. And the Japanese are so stupid, they still save money.
We also have 0.
Yeah, and they still save money. How stupid is that? So that's what I would question. So how come that happens? Now, if I borrow money, guess what? Do I pay taxes on debt?
I guess no.
Why is that?
I know
this is what I'm saying, okay? Question everything.
Okay.
So when they lend out money, that's how money is created. Money is debt. They lend out them. Why is debt tax-free?
I don't know.
Because that's how money is created. And so the banks love it. They love people who borrow lots of money. So how do I get rich? I borrow money. And I buy assets with it. The poor person borrows money and buys liabilities like purses, cars, houses, and they get poorer and poorer and poorer. But I use debt. I borrowed $300 million after the crash, dollars. In 2000, by 2010, I had borrowed $300 million to buy real estate that made me rich. And the interest rates kept coming down, so that my cost of money kept coming down. And so everybody else is saying, oh, you should get out of debt. You know why? Because they don't question the hypnosis they're under. You've been hypnotized to work hard for money, to save it. The fractional reserve system prints it. And then you pay taxes after taxes. So I have all this debt, and I get rich. It's a great time to be an entrepreneur because if you're smart, you have a good spirit, and you learn quickly. So the greatest thing about an entrepreneur is how fast can you learn. You know, when you look at the 7 deadly sins, the biggest tragedy is ego. So that ego or vainglory is the road straight to hell. And so you got to, I tell you I made mistakes. I tell you I screwed up. I'm definitely not on the short list for saint. But you'd better be honest, and people trust you, and you better keep your word. You know, you're only as good as your word.
Yeah.
So actions and words must be in integrity.
Well, that's why in 1997 I created the cashflow. 96 created the cashflow board game. It's the only game that teaches you accounting by having fun. So the cash flow game, I play at least 10 times because each time you play, you're learning something new. Well, what the game is doing, because you have to move pieces and write and all this stuff, is moving your neural pathways. You have to train, the most important thing is change the neural pathways in your brain. And the brain is driven by your heart. And when I meet somebody with an employee's brain, they say, I want job security. I want a good pension. Does it have medical benefits? That's their brain. It's them. I can't help them. They got to rewire the brain, because the economy takes place between this year and this year. That's where the economy takes place, and in your heart and in your guts. I started playing Monopoly. I was 9 years old, and everybody's played Monopoly, except I played it in real life. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel, tax-free. If you're really going to learn to be rich, you have to learn how to sell, how to use debt, and how not to pay taxes. That's the game. That's why I said, when I saw that iPhone come out, I said, all you millennials or all you entrepreneurs out there, that cell phone is your lifeline out of this mess. Use it. So what we're doing today is anti-fragile. We're wartime leaders, and we're going to come out of this better. I don't know how, but it's called metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is like when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. That's metamorphosis. And the definition of metamorphosis, you can look it up in the dictionary, is the transformation from an immature form to an adult form. Immature form to adult form. In other words, grow up. So for some of us, this crisis will grow up. We'll come out of it anti-fragile. We'll come out stronger. And that's why I've been watching my tweets. I say, the best teachers are on YouTube, not in school. Because most school teachers, and this is what Jordan Peterson is saying, he said, Jordan Peterson's being attacked by his own school teachers because they are pussies. They're all these guys, and they tend there, they need job security, they need protection. The world's a terrible place. Capitalists are crooks, and all this stuff. And it's a free country. You can listen to those guys if you want, or you can listen to Patrick McDavid. So your thing on the military leader versus the peacetime leader was prescient. It was one of the most important lessons everybody should look at. They have to ask yourself today, am I going to be a military leader and come out of this anti-fragile and stronger, better, healthier, or am I going to be crushed by what Fuller called grunge, the gross universal cash heist?
I encourage anybody listening to this or any entrepreneur, get to the point where you don't need money. It's called the infinite return. And that's my next book coming out next year.
Yeah.
When you get to the point where you don't need money, you're home free. You'll never need money. You don't care. You can always put a deal together. You can always create an asset out of nothing. It's like, I don't know what else. It's the power of God-given power. So like I said, when I write a book, I'm selling 50 copies, 50 licenses day one. And let's say I get 10,000 a license. How much is that? 50 times 10,000. Is it 500,000?
50 times 10,000?
Yeah.
500,000.
Yeah. So I'm in the black immediately. What does it cost me? Maybe 10,000 to write a book. So I'm in the black. The same thing if I trade a stock. I would buy a stock at $1, it goes up to 10, and I sell. So I have all free trading stock. I have no money in it. That's what Buffett's doing. They're all infinite return guys.
Sure.
You have no money into the deal. And you can do it with anything. Today, if people complain, I don't make enough money in Romania. Well, you have a cell phone. You can make money all over the world. You can make money in dollars, yen, zlotnik, pesos, It's just limited thinking. If a person doesn't change what's inside their head, the actual thoughts running their brain, which are words, they'll never change. So the change begins when you question. Go to school, get a job, work hard, pay taxes, save money, get out of debt, and invest in the stock market. Until you question that one, nothing changes. There's three kinds of income. Okay? There's ordinary, portfolio, passive. So when you say to some poor kid, go to school, get a job, they're working for ordinary income, the highest tax income in the world. I don't work for ordinary income. I don't want a paycheck. Okay? Passive income is generally what happens when you invest in the stock market. Portfolio income. So they say, well, I bought Tesla at 100, it went up to 200, I sold it, so I made $100. That's portfolio income. That's taxed at the next higher level. So when I have passive income, it's tax-free. Getting passive income, you have to know what you're doing. So that's why I have the best, first of all, bookkeeper, accountants, attorneys, bankers. I operate as a team. Just like when we flew into combat, we're a team. And most people are trying to do it self-employed way. I'm a good computer programmer. Good. You pay the highest taxes, you work the hardest, but you don't get ahead that way. But that's what most people, they want to do it on their own. If you want it done right, do it by yourself. And an employee is always saying the same words, this year and this year. I'm looking for a safe, secure job with benefits and a paycheck and a pension. You got that? That's what they're looking for. So if I have a job, I'll help them. And a self-employed person say, how are you doing? I'm the best. Good, I'll hire the best. But the government's going to penalize you for that because you're working for a blended income. But it's more passive income. It's actually ordinary income. But you pay the highest taxes. The tax law are nothing but incentives, not punishments. So if you donate, I just donated money to the food bank because they're out of food. So it's $10,000. I get a tax break. I don't donate money to the food bank, no tax break. So because I have 7,000 rentals in apartment houses, I got a tax break. You know why? Because I'm providing housing. And because I have thousands of employees, the tax break. The government even sent me money to pay my employees.
What do you recommend people do in a market that is potentially heading into depression? Should they be saving cash and thinking about, becoming more liquid? Like what are some of the things that they should do? Well, it depends upon the cash. If you're in Argentine, is it pesos? Pesos, Argentine pesos, yeah. I wouldn't touch it. I'd save gold and silver. See, what's his name? What's his Bridgewater's guy? Ray Dalio, yeah. He says it depends upon the currency you're in. Sure. He says, so like Zimbabwe, their debt is financed with external money. Japan is internally financed. So that's why the depression doesn't hurt them as badly. So you have to learn so much about that. So I own millions and millions and millions and millions and millions in gold because I started buying gold in 1973 when it was illegal for Americans to own gold. And I like gold and silver because there's no counterparty risk. There's no other party to it. Gold and silver are God's money. So people say, well, it's not a good investment. I said, yeah, but I sleep at night. What's that worth?
You know?
Sure.
So I don't care if the dollar is corrupt, the US dollar is corrupt, but it's the strongest currency in a horrible currency world.
Yeah.
So if you're US, save dollars. You're in Argentina, don't save gold.
Right.
Save Bitcoin.
You think Bitcoin would be?
I mean Bitcoin's got its problems too. But
Sure.
I'm saying I would. So when you say save money, you got to say what
currency?
Yeah, what currency?
The very guys that went to the schools, the best schools, created these fake assets to make themselves and the 6 major banks richer than ever before. They produced sugar highs of immediate profits, but separated those taking the risk from those who would bear the consequences. So the way out of it is for financial education. And you can do it. Everybody can do it, but you have to understand the game. After 1971, this is what happens to people who save money. The purchasing power of the dollar is going down because they're printing money. And our school teachers, these fake teachers, again, they're good people. Well, these financial planners still tell you to save money. Well, why would you save money when these guys are printing it faster than you could ever save it? That's bad teaching, bad financial advice, horrible. So he says, and then the second thing, they tell you to save money and invest for the long term in the stock market. This guy is saying, are you nuts? This is Stockman. He was Reagan's budget director. He is a real teacher. He was there. This is the whole stock market is rigged for the rich. Again, it's a casino, and a casino is depends upon all these losers coming in, so those at the top can win. So the losers started coming in right around here, 1974. It was a thing called the 401k. They needed more losers to enter the market. And what do the financial planners tell you? Save money and invest for the long term in the stock market. They needed people to come in here and push this up. Again, it's a casino like Las Vegas. A lot of losers walk in, winners walk out with the money. That's the game. Now again was Glass-Steagall. They organize hedge funds that turn owning a stock into a minute, 2-minute bet rather than invest for the long term. It's a casino. We don't know when, but it will come down. Then all those guys with those 401ks, toast. That's why the Rich Dad Company was formed. That's why I catch so much hell saying savers are losers, you know. Why invest for the long term in the stock market when it's a casino? My concern is the old guys like me are sitting there with their retirement plans, which are broke. You know, the California retirement system is broke. Hawaii retirement system is broke. Chicago's retirement system is broke. And if and when this baby comes down, my generation is toast. The way out is through real financial education. The property was a little condominium, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, $18,000 US. It was on the beach of Maui. The reason the price was so low is the market had crashed. Smart investors always wait for the crash. So this thing crashed. I had to look at 100 properties once I left the class, 3-day class. I had to look at 100 properties in 90 days and write a 1-page report on each of those properties. As my instructor said to me when I left that 3-day class, I was 26 years old. And the instructor says, your education begins when you leave the class, as your education will begin when you leave this class, not now. So you have a chance to talk to Carlos, you have a chance to talk to Alvaro. Talk to them, find out, learn. Doesn't cost you any money. Change your ideas. So with this here, the instructor said I had to buy the investment for 0 money. Okay, 0 money. Most people will tell you, I can't invest because I don't have money. That's a loser. Please understand this. This was 1974. The dollar had just gone off the gold standard. Everything was coming up fast. So I had to figure out how to buy it for zero. And the reason I say that is most poor people, like Padre Pobre, always says, I can't afford it. I know some of you right now are saying, well, I can't afford it. I don't have time. I have children. I have a job. I have bills to pay. And it is those excuses that keep you poor. If you do not change that talk in your head, you'll always be the poor person.
I just think about the economy, business, world affairs. I want to. My job is to make complex financial systems simple enough so the average person can understand it. That is extremely difficult because most people are brainwashed when it comes to money. Go to school, get a job, work hard, pay your taxes, save money, get out of debt, buy a house, and invest in the stock market. Everybody who follows that program has been brainwashed. I don't even care about money. I make a lot of money because I understand the system. I would never go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, buy a house, and invest in the stock market. I do everything exactly opposite. The big question is how much is enough? Because I think the reason Kim and I are successful is we always started small. We actually stay small.
Kitchen table.
And we do keep doing the same thing, but we don't ever try to get big. We got big, but I think we got big by staying small.
We did. I mean, our core group is very small.
Yeah.
And then we license out.
So for those of you who think you have to start some mega company or make millions of dollars, that's not really true.
The lesson is here, you got to choose your teachers wisely. When the market crashed in 2008, guess how much money I borrowed?
A lot.
$300 million.
No way. From private investors, the bank, or how does that work?
Because interest rates were dropping and real estate prices were going to the toilet. And when I walk into my banker, this is what Rich Dad Poor Dad is about. Rich Dad Poor Dad is about a financial statement. Income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flow. It's a book on accounting. People don't even know it's a book on accounting. So I walked into my bank with my partner and had all this property that was floating to the surface. And I say, I'll take them off your hands. I just give me the money to buy the property.
Wow.
That's cojones.
$300 million.
Give me the money and I'll buy your properties for you.
That's crazy.
So it depends. And this is my whole thing. I'm now $700 million, almost $1 billion in debt.
Really?
You know why? Because I don't pay any taxes. The more debt I have, the less tax I pay. And the average guy goes, how do you do that? Because you have bad teachers. And so it's this whole thing that you got to choose your teachers wisely. That's why I wrote the book, Fake Money, Fake Teachers, Fake Assets. I don't touch that garbage that Wall Street puts out. I don't have a 401k. I don't have stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. Doesn't mean you shouldn't, but I don't need them. Okay?
Right.
And the other part is, look, for you young guys, the best teachers are not in colleges. The best teachers are on YouTube. The best teachers are on YouTube. Wake up.
I say to young people, the millennials, you've been screwed. You're being left with a world that's absolutely horrible shape, financial and all this. Student loan debt, pensions are collapsing, financial systems are collapsing, the rich are getting richer. But apparently somebody gave you something to get yourself out of this, and what the millennials have that I didn't have was an iPhone. The iPhone is the single most powerful. I cannot believe how much power that thing has. So it seems to me, I'm not really religious, I'm not political, but I'm saying that God does provide at some level, and God provided the millennials with an iPhone. Holy mackerel. All you have to do is sync your brain to that iPhone. You have more power than you and I ever had when we were their age. Do you know what I mean? The trouble is, if they haven't gone to school and they have a teacher that is incompetent, and we've all had incompetent teachers, their brain and the iPhone are not synced in to making money. Do you know what I mean? And if you can't make money with your iPhone, there's something wrong in your brain, not the iPhone's brain.
I went to war twice on the front lines.
Yeah.
And I changed. What happened? So I joined the Marine Corps. I go to flight school in Pensacola. I learned to fly. I go to Camp Pendleton. I strap on my weapons. I go to advanced weapons in Camp Pendleton. I go to Okinawa, and then they send me into Vietnam. And I came out of Vietnam about 4 months later, back to restage in Okinawa, and I thought everybody had changed. I looked at the fellow Marines, and I thought they were, and it wasn't that they were. I had been to war.
You got tougher. You got stronger.
It's different when somebody's trying to kill you. Every single mission, I went down 3 times.
No way.
Yeah. And I came back stronger and tougher. So I come back to Okinawa. I got like a week off, and they're going to ship me back into Vietnam again. I said, what happened to these guys? And it wasn't that they changed, I changed. So what happens to entrepreneurs who go out and they get their ass handed to them and they survive? If you survive, you see the world differently. And so that's what happened to you when you get injured and all this.
Yeah.
You see a different world. Whereas some peacetime who's climbing the corporate ladder right now, they just lost their job. They're sucking their thumb. This is the worst time for them. Yet for a wartime leader, they're
excited. They're excited about it. Yeah.
It's the best of times.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur right now, the world's open to you. If you're an employee, your world's dead to you.
Well, the Japanese had a thing called kumiai.
Kumiai. Okay.
Kumiai was if you lived in the same neighborhood in Hawaii and you were Japanese, all the Japanese stuck together. And my father, who was 6'4", for Japanese is pretty big, the kumiai would come and talk to our family about the Japanese sticking together. And my father threw them out. And these are he says, look, we're Americans. Get that in your head right now. So I had this conflicting cultural values.
Sure.
So again, for every entrepreneur, first thing you must inspect is what was your cultural heritage. Not that it's right or wrong, what were the values. I made my usual wise-ass remark, only lazy people use their own money. And that's because I have spent much of my life raising capital. Today you have crowdfunding and all that stuff. But the reason I had to learn to raise money was because I had no money. And so if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in there, my rich dad always said, never say, I can't afford it. And it was my rich dad and many of my teachers subsequent to that. They said, lazy people always say, I can't afford it. I don't have the money. That's why they're poor. They have a poor mindset. So instead of figuring out how to raise money, it's just really easy to be a loser. And I call them losers. It pisses them off. Because we all have the power, if we wanted to not be poor if we learned how to raise money.
If you're poor right now, it was called look in the mirror. That's what my dad always said to me. Says, if you're looking in the mirror right now and you see a loser, that's what you are. You can't make money in this economy. You better change your thinking. Hindsight is 20/20, as I said.
Yes.
If you're looking, you don't have any money, you don't have a job, your boyfriend or girlfriend has left you, and sitting there goes, well, how did I get here? How did I get here? There was a great book called, Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn. So he gets thrown in a concentration camp or a gulag in Siberia, and he says, how did I get here? You know how he got there? Because he was a peacetime leader. Didn't fight back. So people are being sold a bill, go to school, get a job, pay taxes, save money, get out of debt, buy a house. The house is an asset, and invest for the long term in a well-defined portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. And I do none of that.
So these guys have become small entrepreneurs. They wind up in 60% brackets. You can edit all that out, right? The coffee. Okay. So you go, they're a 60% bracket. So my objective was to get to the I and the B and the I. So on the B side, when you have 500 employees or more, you pay 20% in taxes. So that's why, when we're here in New York City, when Amazon was looking to move to New York, they were going to give them all the tax breaks possible.
Now you're Joe Schmo, the computer programmer. They're not going to give you any tax break at all. You pay the high taxes.
Pay more, yeah.
And then the I quadrant is a professional investor, the insider, the inside guy. And the number one asset is real estate. That's the game. It's debt and taxes. So every time I make money in the B quadrant as a business owner, as a 20% bracket, I then move my money into real estate and I pay no taxes.
Yep.
And that's the game. So I get the whole tax system of capitalism is designed to make you richer. But our schools will never teach you that, which is the battle today between you academics who are E's and S's for most sakes. And then you have the B's and the I's. Their skill sets, their mindsets, their beings, their spirits are different. So like, when they kicked Bezos out of here, no problem, he just moved.
Yeah. So for an entrepreneur that wants to one day start their business and they understand now because you're here that the school system that they're currently in is not going to provide them that, or let's say a parent is watching and they know that, their student is going to be part of the STEM field, let's say. What should they do? Should they go out there and drop out like I did and try to start their business and take that risk? What are the ways to transition off of that?
Well, that's the reason I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then the quadrant. So it gave guys like you kind of a roadmap. I mean, there's so many different ways you can get there. And then the third book's Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, the I quadrant. See, the I quadrant's the key. And as a professional investor, I use the I quadrant to analyze businesses. Like I just invested in an education company, and are you a trader? What's wrong with you? Why are you investing in an education company? I said, who funds education companies? And they go, I don't know. I said, the government. So that's why these charter schools and all that, they're pretty good investments. Because your source of income is the government. Because the whole Constitution says every child must have an education. So they might be teaching them garbage, but I like the source of funds.
Because you're on the other side.
I'm only kidding.
Because you're on the other side of the table, right?
Yeah, I'm just sitting there going, what am I looking at? I want, if the entrepreneur has no skills and say, I got a PhD, but I can't sell, I can't negotiate, I don't have any professional skills and all this. I don't care about a PhD. I'm not going to invest in you. But if you say to me, the federal government is going to give you $1 million a month to teach kids, suddenly I like you a lot. Because it's the federal government that's giving you the
capitalist
money.
here, right?
I'm not that mercenary, but I'm pretty close. I'm pretty close to that. And then I'm just going to invest that money in real estate.
Yeah. Let's talk about money. So we talked about this idea of the rich mindset. We understand how broken the education model is because it's a lot of it, as we mentioned, modeled back to the 18th century of Prussia and the factory system.
It was what you're talking about had two purposes. One, to train employees, and second, to train soldiers. People would just do as they're told without thinking.
Right. Was that because they were fighting Prussia and they realized how efficient the soldiers were in the war and they wanted to model off that?
Well, they were taking farmers.
Right.
You see, the whole thing went agrarian, industrial, today technology. So back then, they were trying to get these farmers who were pretty independent little guys, and they work for themselves. So they're trying to train them from farmers, or S quadrant, self-employed, to employees or soldiers.
Right.
People who would do as they're told.
Right. And the education system hasn't been updated since that time, basically.
No, it's actually gone backwards, in my opinion.
In what way?
Well, they're misinforming and miseducating. Look, the biggest thing for an entrepreneur is you've got to learn how to make mistakes. And the school punishes you for making mistakes. Second, you have to operate in a team. Everybody talks about team, except in school. If you take tests as a team, you're called cheaters.
Yeah.
So just those two mind constructs. The average guy goes out there afraid of making a mistake and starts a business and they make mistakes, obviously. Then they don't have a team.
Gotcha.
And the odds are stacked against them.
Yeah.
So my wife and I started with a bookkeeper. Why a bookkeeper? Because the number one thing an entrepreneur must have is accurate records. I've made so many guys show up and they said, where are your records? They want me to fund their company. They don't have any records. They have no numbers. I said, how do I know if you're good or bad? Well, yeah, man, it's a good concept. We're doing a lot of good.
We're going to change the world.
Yeah.
This is like a revolutionary concept.
We're good people.
Yeah.
You know, I have a master's in art.
Yeah. We're from the same city, you know?
I know, yeah.
You know?
We grew up together.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you're not doing well, if you're not thriving today in this crisis, then somebody to your head. Somebody crawled upside your butt and into your head and messed with it. You know, go to school, get a job, work hard, taxes, save money, and then get out of debt and invest for the long term in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. If you've done that, you're in big trouble. So as you know, if you don't change your thoughts, you don't change your life. And that's why I've been tweeting. I know I'm so old, I don't know what Twitter is. I'm finding out fast. But anyway, what was I talking? Oh, I said, go to YouTube, man. The best teachers are on YouTube, and they're not getting paid stupid academic rates. You know, they don't have tenure. Most of them, if they're a real teacher, they're doing really well today. You're doing well. I'm doing well. I would listen to us, not that phony at Harvard, you know, the peacetime leader. I don't know if it's good news, except to be careful. You know, what changed my life was a book, like it did for many people. It was this book here. It was called The Grunge of Giants, and it's by Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller. And grunge stands for Gross Universal Cash Heist. So when I was, I think, in my 30s, I went to study with Fuller. You know, he's most well known for the geodesic dome, and I first saw his geodesic dome in Montreal, Canada, Expo 67, the World's Fair of the Future. So my classmate from school in New York, we hitchhiked up to Montreal just to see Bucky's dome. It was a U.S. pavilion, and it blew me away. You know, and but we all have these events and teachers in our lives. And so I think the good news is that there's a teacher like you online now. The best teachers are on YouTube, not in schools anymore. And I think that's really the good news, is what we're doing is the news. What's happening in the news today is fake. It's the old news. This, it's tragic. This coronavirus, you know, like, I don't know if it's real. I mean, the virus is real, but the media terrorism is frightening. So I've already been warned many times to stay in my lane. Don't go into medicine. Don't go into this virus. Stay teaching people with my little cash flow game. You know, I'm talking about stay small or we'll stomp on you. So I just remember back in I first went to the Dome in Montreal at the World's Fair in 67. And I studied with Fuller in 1981, and I studied in 81, 82, and 83, and he was predicting the future. He told us what was coming. And as I've said many times to many people, it's not what I want to do. I don't do what I love. I ask myself, what does God want done? And what God wants done is real education, in my opinion, and it's financial education. And there is no real financial education in our school systems, and that's not a mistake. So that was in 81 and 83. I couldn't take it anymore. I read Grunge of Giants, and I understood it because my rich dad kept saying, somebody's messing with us. And every time you say that, you know, you're a tin hat guy, you're an aluminum hat, you're a conspiracy, you're a spaceship, you're an alien guy, and I'm just saying, no, I'm an entrepreneur. At the time, I was in rock and roll. You know, my first date with Kim was to the Place, you know, and she was out front having a good time, and I was in back with the attorneys negotiating a contract. So I'm not really a rock and roller, but I'm an entrepreneur. And at that time, I said, what does God want done? Not what I want to do. I love rock and roll. And what God wants done is financial education. That was my opinion. And so that was in 83. So yesterday, you know, and so I said, I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do, because you'll never know. You'll never know what God wants done. So I operate on faith.
You know, I don't know if you saw me on Patrick Ben-David. You know, that guy's a genius, man. I love working with him.
He's smart, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's smart. I used to work with Tony Robbins, and he has that quickness of brain.
Yep.
I'm a little Hawaiian, a little slower. But anyway, he goes, I told him, I said, you know, during the agrarian age, the church was the center. So every small town had a church.
So it was very spiritual, and that was the culture. We shifted to the industrial age, and then weaponry came up. So we could now kill. They went from swords to guns to machine guns to rockets to drones, So during the industrial age, they started building statues to war heroes. So that was, as a Marine, they have the Marines raising the flag on Iwo Jima, and they have Robert E. Lee and Grant. And so everybody respected war heroes and stuff like that. Now they're tearing down Robert E. Lee and Grant and all these guys because America is now worshiping the victim.
Victim mentality.
The victim mentality. And that's what I said on Patrick Bet David. And a couple of my friends called me and said, "You're an asshole." And I said, "Well, you're entitled to your opinion, but I've been called better, and stuff like this." But I said, we're raising victims. Our schools are pumping out victims. And the reason I like this guy, Jordan Peterson, is he says, it's not what a person stands for. You see that? He did this great thing. It's what are they against? He says a lot of times they'll stand up there and say, well, I stand for socialism, but they're really against the rich. And so that's why when you talk about Andrew Yang and Pete Buttigieg and all this stuff, I wonder what they really stand for. What are they really fighting for? So I'm upfront with you. I'm fighting for capitalism.
Yeah.
I fight for education, that we should have better education. I'm not saying anything else inside that. I don't have a hidden agenda.
Sure.
So when these guys are talking about we're going to fix the homeless, I said, what does that mean? And so what Jordan Peterson says, they're against the rich. They're not for the homeless. They're against the rich. And that's where most of the people on the left are. And I don't know that because I'm not political, not Republican or Democrat. You don't have any religious agenda. You want to believe in God, fine. Don't want to believe in God, fine. But I want to know what you really stand for, not what you pretend to be standing for. My attitude is this: if you're going to be a real entrepreneur, you have to be a lifelong learner. I am studying, learning constantly. I never stop. And that's my competitive advantage. But also my core advisor team, we never stop together. I have my accountants, my attorneys, my bankers and all that, we study together. That's what we do when we get together. We don't play golf, we don't drink beer, we study. Because study is the way you win. But you have to know what you're studying, because what you put in here, garbage in, garbage out, right? The other thing you have to be careful is who's your teacher, who's your mentor. I took golf lessons once at the Biltmore, and it was the most horrible golf lesson I ever had. Because that was a golf, the teacher and I just did not get along. So they brought a new golf instructor in, and I learned to love the game again. You know what I mean? So as an entrepreneur, be very careful who your teacher is, because they can either kill your spirit or increase your spirit. A good teacher will inspire you to learn more. A bad teacher will tell you you're stupid and you should study more. Most of your viewers out there sitting inside their head are the words from their mother and father. Go to school, get a job, pay taxes, save money, buy a house because it's an asset, get out of debt, and invest in the stock market. That creates poor people. It's a hypnosis train going through your brain. So when people say, how do I change my life? Well, you change those words. I wouldn't go to school because you learn nothing about money in school. I wouldn't get a job because if I have a job, I'm an employee. And then I'd pay taxes. And I don't pay taxes. And I don't save money. And I use debt to get rich. And I don't invest in the stock market. That's why I'm rich. And so the young people who are listening right now, they're saying, but that's what my mom and dad said. But that's what mom and dad say all over the world. So to the young people, I just say challenge or question what you've been taught. Because from the Bible, I'm not religious, the word becomes flesh. So if you say, go to school, and you say, but I learned nothing about money. Get a job, you become an employee. If you're an employee, you work for money. I pay taxes. Then they tell you to save money. Why would you save money when the government's printing money? And get out of debt. Well, debt is money.
I use debt to get rich. Most people use debt to get poor and invest in the stock market. I don't invest in the stock market. So when you wonder why so many people struggle financially, is they haven't challenged the hypnosis, the words, go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get paid taxes. Until you question those hypnotic trances, you don't change.
The question I ask you is, are you following the herd? You know, the herd generally goes off the cliff like a bunch of lemmings. You know, how many are doing what your mommy and daddy told you what to do? Go to school, get a job, invest in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. Is that what you're doing? Are you hoping that the next person elected, whether it's President Trump or one of the other candidates, will save the economy? Well, we have a very important show for people like you, because this program is about, you have to do the exact opposite of what everybody else is doing. Because if you keep doing what everybody's doing, I'm afraid everybody's going to go off the cliff. And that cliff is not too far away right now.
What I found out, the accountants and attorneys who went to the biggest schools are not the best. I have found what I'm looking for is somebody who may be a private guy who is passionate about entrepreneurship. So they're a great attorney for entrepreneurs. You know, they're not, you know, most attorneys are looking for the big client, like I want to work for, you know, General Electric. What I want is the attorney and the accountant who are passionate about it being entrepreneurs. So my guys right here in Phoenix are entrepreneurs, and my accountants are entrepreneurs. Every time I hired the big name corporate and law accounting firms, I have been grossly overpaid and underserved because they're so used to doing bigger things, they don't have time for a little guy like me. It's the same with bankers. I'm looking for a banker who loves being an entrepreneur. You know, you got to have this partnership with the banker. You know, I dump on the financial services industry a lot, and they deserve to be dumped on, but you got to have one on your team, you know? So my banker is the love of my life, because that's where I get my money from.
The biggest thing for most young people is that our schools teach us to be ICs, independent contractors.
Okay.
Or self-employed, or even if you're an employee, you're still an independent contractor who has a job. And you do it by yourself. You know, I think much of the young world is in the selfie world. You know, look at me, look at me, look at me. Whereas in my world, it's a team sport. I'm a rugby player. I go on the field with a team, toughest, meanest guys I know. And so you could be the A student from Princeton, but I go on the field with 15 tough men, kick your ass. And so the average guy is coming out there, you know, like, oh, I got an A, I went to Princeton, I went to Harvard, and the corporate America comes out and they go, boom. So that's why when I talk to young people, I say, look, it's a team sport. So the first person I have is a bookkeeper. Bookkeeper is the lowest paid person on my team, but the most important.
Right.
The bookkeeper then keeps the accurate records that my accountant can use, and my attorney can use, and my banker can use. That's the combination there. And my banker, my attorney, and my accountant must work together as a team. Most people, their bankers, accountants, and attorneys don't work together as teams, because in school we're taught to take our tests on our own. If you ask for help, you're cheating. In my world, it's called cooperation. And what I found with most smart people, they don't know how to cooperate. They don't know how to ask for help, because in their brains, that's cheating. It means you're stupid. It means you're weak. It means you're stupid.
One of the things I stress here at Rich Dad, which I didn't do for much of the time, was because once Kim and I had enough money, the question is, what do you do next? And if Kim and I had continued to work for money, I think I would have died. So when Kim retired, she was 37 and I was 47. But just as we said on this with Vante, it's one of your primary objectives, especially today, is when do you plan to retire?
because the idea of having a job and waiting for your 401k or your stock market to save you, I think you're going to be sadly disappointed, because what I'm foreseeing is a massive crash coming. It's going to wipe out a lot of people. And I'm coming out with a new book called Who Stole My Pension? And all these guys who think their pension is safe, I think Wall Street has other ideas on their pension here. So when I say to young people like you guys, I said, plan your retirement the day you start working. When do you escape from the rat race? That's the cash flow game. Well, as we know, there's fewer and fewer jobs. American corporations say they're hiring, but they're not hiring in America, they're hiring overseas. But more than that is that the reason I endorse network marketing is most people are addicted to the paycheck. And the paycheck is one of the most sinister plots ever pulled upon a human being. If you need a paycheck, you've sold your soul. You've sold your body, your mind, your spirit, and your emotions. You sit there in fear of losing your job, or can I get a raise, or will I get promoted? And then why would you do that? Another thing about the reason we endorse network marketing, we don't think of it as a network marketing, we think of it as entrepreneur development. Because if you need a paycheck, this is not your business. We build businesses. So sometimes when Kim and I do a deal, we may not receive a paycheck for 5-6 years. And so these guys come, am I going to get rich quick? And some people do. I don't know if you do or not. But that is an employee, get rich, loser mindset. And so the thing that network marketing does is really kind of cure you of that loser paycheck, get rich quick mentality, and actually build a business. We build businesses, and that's how we're rich, but we didn't get rich quick, and I don't need a paycheck, and I never want a paycheck. So that's kind of a revolutionary thought to most people up there who went to school to get good grades and get a job, and then you get a high-paying job, and the higher-paying job, you pay higher taxes, and you wonder why you never get ahead. That's because you went to school to get a job and a paycheck. You've got to get away from the paycheck, and sometimes it might take 2-3 years to get away from that. And that's what network marketing teaches people. It's an entrepreneur's mindset. It's an entrepreneur's spirit, not a loser employee, I need a paycheck mentality. A big part of what makes a company successful is whether or not they have a brand, B-R-A-N-D, almost misspelled it. Okay? And brand, people think, well, it's the communication, But a brand is more than that. The reason Rich Dad is so valuable right now is because it is an internationally known brand the same way as Trump is known as a brand. And the real question on a brand is not just communication. See, a brand makes it easier to sell. When somebody says Rich Dad, they go, oh, I think I heard of that, or I know what the guy stands for and all this. So what a brand really is the entire BI triangle. If you're going to create a brand, especially in a world that's overcrowded with advertising, communication, the webs, iPods, print, blogs, there's so much competition now for a person's time, it really is more important that you become a brand. So there's a shortcut communication. Like if I say the word Ferrari, you get a picture of something in your mind. It's a whole body effect. But if I said Hyundai or Kia, car, they're probably just as good a car, but you get a whole different emotional effect just by the brand name. So I'm not saying Hyundais are better or worse than a Ferrari, but I'll pay more for a Ferrari than I will for a Hyundai. I don't own a Hyundai, by the way. I own a Ferrari. What does it mean? It's a shortcut communication. Like if I say the word Apple, some people think of computers and some people think of red apple. But for the guys like me I'm an Apple fanatic, the brand means a lot to me. I love Steve Jobs. He's one of the best entrepreneurs in the world right now. And if I say the word Marine Corps is a brand. It communicates everything, the mission, the team, the leadership, the style, the message. The Marines have a saying, we're only looking for a few good men and women. That means we just don't want to be like the Army. We have to position ourselves away from the Army, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard, and the Navy. So brands are so vitally important as a communication tool, especially in today's over-communicated to world. There are more people competing for your customer's mind, their time,
You know, how many blogs can you read? How many magazines can you read? How many television sets can you read? How many games can you play and all this? So today, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it becomes more and more important that you become a brand. There are people who want to go into real estate, but they have the negative Midas touch. Everything they touch turns to, it doesn't turn to gold. And no matter what piece of real estate or no matter what stock they go into, they have a loser's mentality. And that's why I don't hang out with losers. Well, I'm a good, hard-working person. I say, I know, but you're a laborer. You're not an investor. You don't understand me. But I'm a good person. I go to church every Sunday. I work hard. I say, yeah, but you're still a loser. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. Does that make sense, guys, here? You're a loser. You're a financial loser. That's what it means. It doesn't mean I don't want a bad partner.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. If you want 10 more amazing rules from Robert Kiyosaki, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Most people are afraid of debt. You go home tonight and you say, well, they taught me about using debt. And most people go like this.